Capricorn, something shifted after the new moon, and you may already be feeling it. What looks like silence may actually be the beginning of a completely different chapter. Today, we're uncovering the hidden shift that could change the direction of your destiny. The shift you cannot see yet, Capricorn. There is a kind of change that never announces itself. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't send a warning. It simply begins, quietly, privately, somewhere inside you, long before anything on the outside looks different. That is exactly where you are right now. If you feel like you're standing in some strange in-between space, you're not imagining it. You're not stuck. You're not behind. You are simply positioned between two chapters of your life, one that is ending even if it hasn't fully closed yet, and one that hasn't announced itself clearly enough for you to name it. And that in-between space can feel uncomfortable because Capricorn, more than almost any other sign, you like to know where you stand. You like clear plans. You like measurable progress. You like to feel the ground beneath your feet. But right now, some of that ground is shifting. And it's shifting in a way you can't fully see yet. Here's what's important to understand. Silence does not mean nothing is happening. Delay does not mean denial. Uncertainty does not mean failure. Sometimes the most important transformations in a person's life happen exactly like this. Underground, out of view, in the quiet hours when no one is applauding and nothing seems to be moving. Think about how a seed grows. Before anything breaks through the surface of the soil, there is a period where everything looks still. Nothing visible is happening, but underneath, roots are forming, structure is being built. The entire foundation for what will eventually grow above ground is being laid in the dark, in the silence where no one can see it. That is where you are, Capricorn. You are in the root-forming stage of something new. And the fact that you can't see it yet doesn't mean it isn't real. This is the part of the video where I want you to lean in a little closer, because what we're about to explore isn't about predicting a single event. It's about recognizing a pattern that may already be playing out in your life, whether you've named it or not. There is a hidden transformation taking place beneath the surface of your everyday routine, your responsibilities, your relationships, your work. And the next phase of your life is not going to be about forcing outcomes into existence through sheer willpower, the way you might normally try to do. This next phase is about recognizing what is already changing on its own, and choosing whether to align with it or to keep fighting for a version of your life that no longer fits who you're becoming. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may realize that what felt like stagnation was actually preparation. Why everything feels different after the new moon. Let's talk about why this particular moment, right after a new moon, carries so much weight. In astrology, a new moon is symbolically understood as a reset point. It's the moment in the lunar cycle where the sky goes dark before beginning to fill with light again. It represents beginnings that haven't taken visible shape yet, intentions being planted rather than intentions being harvested. Whatever seeds get planted during this window often don't show results immediately. They need time. They need quiet. They need the very kind of patience that can feel unnatural to someone as action-oriented as you. And that's where your sign comes in. Capricorn, your entire nature is built around structure, responsibility, ambition, long-term vision, and personal authority. You are the sign that plans 10 steps ahead. You are the sign that takes responsibility seriously, sometimes to the point of carrying more weight than you should. You are the sign that builds carefully, deliberately, brick by brick, because you understand that anything worth having is worth doing right. So when a new moon passes and life suddenly feels quieter than usual, it can be unsettling for you specifically. You're used to feeling forward motion. You're used to having a plan you can point to. But right now, in this post-new moon period, a lot of what's happening is internal. New intentions are taking root, but they haven't grown into visible form yet. That doesn't mean they aren't growing. Here is something I want you to really absorb. You are not being rejected right now. You are being redirected. Those are two very different things, even though they can feel painfully similar in the moment. Rejection implies an ending with no continuation, a closed door with nothing behind it. Redirection implies that the destination hasn't disappeared, only the route has changed. And Capricorn, if you've been feeling like doors are closing, plans are stalling, or people and situations feel unexpectedly distant, I want you to consider the possibility that you are being gently, sometimes uncomfortably, moved onto a different path toward the same destination you've been working toward. This is where the emotional tension starts to build, because here is the harder truth beneath all of this. The old plan you've been holding on to may no longer match the person you are becoming. You have grown, you have changed. The version of you that first set that goal, made that decision, or committed to that person or path may not be exactly the same version of you standing here today. And when who you are shifts, sometimes the plans built by an earlier version of yourself start to feel less like a good fit and more like an old coat you've outgrown but haven't taken off yet. That's the hidden shift we're talking about. It's not always about something external falling apart. Sometimes it's about you quietly becoming someone your old plan was never designed for. The old timeline is losing its power. Let's go a little deeper, because I think you already know somewhere inside yourself what I'm about to say. There are patterns in your life that you have outgrown. Maybe you haven't said it out loud. Maybe you've kept pushing forward out of habit or loyalty or fear of starting over. But if you're honest with yourself, there are situations that once felt important, situations you used to protect, defend, or prioritize without question, that now feel strangely distant. Not painful exactly, just far away, like watching an old photograph of a life that technically belongs to you, but doesn't quite feel like yours anymore. This happens to Capricorn more often than people realize, because you are so good at enduring. You are so good at showing up, staying committed and pushing through discomfort, because you were taught, maybe by life, maybe by circumstance, that consistency is a virtue and quitting is a weakness. And in many ways, that discipline has served you well. It's part of what makes you so capable of building real, lasting success. But there is a difference between healthy persistence and quiet self-abandonment. And sometimes the very thing that once felt like loyalty or responsibility is actually just familiarity dressed up as obligation. Pay attention to repeated disappointments, not one bad day, not one hard conversation. I mean the pattern, the situation that keeps circling back to the same unsatisfying result, no matter how much effort you pour into it. That repetition is not a coincidence, it's information. It's life quietly showing you, again and again, where the alignment has broken down, where what you're offering and what you're receiving no longer match. I want you to notice over these next few weeks where you are no longer willing to compromise yourself, where a boundary you never used to have is suddenly forming, where you catch yourself saying, even quietly in your own mind, I don't think I can keep doing this the way I've been doing it. That is not weakness, that is growth speaking. And here is the reframe I want you to carry with you. Releasing something that no longer fits is not loss. It is evolution. You are not losing the old version of your plan. You are shedding it, the way you shed anything that has served its purpose and can no longer carry you forward. There is no failure in that. There is only forward motion, even when it's disguised as an ending. A hidden decision is forming. Here's something I believe is happening for many of you watching this right now, whether you've fully admitted it to yourself yet or not. You are quietly making a decision, not a small everyday decision, the kind you make and forget about within an hour. I mean a decision with real weight behind it, something that touches your career, your relationships, your finances, where you live, who you spend your time around, or simply who you decide to be moving forward. And the reason I say this decision is hidden is because you may not have consciously named it yet. It might still be forming below the surface of your everyday thoughts, present in the background of your mind even while you go about your normal routine. This is very Capricorn of you, by the way. You rarely make big decisions impulsively. You process, you weigh, you consider consequences long before you act. So it makes sense that this decision, whatever it is, hasn't arrived as a dramatic lightning bolt moment. It's arriving slowly, through clarity rather than chaos. I want you to think back over the last several days or weeks. Has there been one particular thought that keeps returning to you? A recurring worry, a recurring hope, a recurring what if? Has your attention kept drifting back to the same subject even when you try to focus on something else? That repetition matters. Whatever keeps capturing your attention, again and again, almost involuntarily, is very likely connected to the decision that is quietly forming inside you. It might be about a career path you've been quietly questioning. It might be about a relationship you've been evaluating more honestly than before. It might be about money, security, where you're living, or simply the direction your identity has been shifting toward. Whatever it is, I want you to trust that the clarity is closer than it feels. And here's what I believe is coming for you, Capricorn. There is one decision that is going to become impossible to keep ignoring. Not because life will force your hand dramatically, but because your own inner clarity is going to get louder and louder until pretending you don't already know the answer simply isn't an option anymore. You may already know more than you're admitting to yourself. Sit with that for a moment. The universe is asking you to stop forcing. Now let's talk about something that might be a little uncomfortable to hear, but I think you need to hear it anyway, because it may be the most important message in this entire video. Capricorn, your instinct, when something isn't working, is to try harder, to push more, to apply more discipline, more effort, more control. This has worked for you many times in your life. Your work ethic is one of your greatest strengths, and in most situations, showing up with more effort does produce more results. But not every situation responds to force, and right now, some part of your life may be trying to teach you that lesson. Not every closed door needs to be pushed open. Some doors are closed because what's behind them was never meant to be part of your story. And continuing to push against something that consistently resists you isn't always persistence. Sometimes it's attachment disguised as determination. There's an important difference between the two. Persistence is continuing to move forward because a path is genuinely unfolding, even slowly, even with obstacles. Attachment is continuing to push because letting go feels too frightening, too much like failure, or too much like admitting that something you invested in didn't work out the way you hoped. One is guided by growth. The other is guided by fear. I want you to gently ask yourself over the coming days, where in my life am I pushing simply because stopping feels like giving up? And where am I pushing because I can genuinely feel forward motion, even if it's slow? This is where resistance becomes valuable information rather than an obstacle to overcome. When something keeps resisting you, a job application that keeps stalling, a relationship that keeps feeling one-sided, a plan that keeps hitting delay after delay. It might not be a test of your persistence. It might be redirection wearing the costume of an obstacle. Stepping back is not the same as giving up. Sometimes stepping back is the only way to see the fuller picture, to notice the path forward that was invisible, while you were standing too close, pushing too hard, focused too narrowly on one single outcome. This message may be uncomfortable, Capricorn, because I know how deeply you value control. But right now, you may be being asked to trust something larger than your own effort. And that trust, uncomfortable as it feels, might be exactly what opens the next door. The unexpected opportunity. Here's where things start to shift towards something more hopeful. I believe there is an opportunity moving toward you right now that may not look like what you expected. It might seem small, it might seem ordinary, it might not resemble the picture you had in your mind when you imagined your next big win. And because of that, there is a real risk that you could overlook it, or worse, dismiss it, simply because it doesn't match your original definition of success. Destiny rarely announces itself with a spotlight. More often, it arrives quietly, disguised as something completely unremarkable. A conversation you almost didn't have. A message you almost didn't reply to. An invitation you nearly turned down out of habit or fatigue. An idea that crossed your mind and you brushed aside because it seemed inconvenient or unrealistic at the time. I want you to stay open to these small, easily dismissed moments over the coming days and weeks. Not everything meaningful arrives wrapped in obvious significance. Sometimes the most important turning points in a person's life look, in the moment, like nothing at all. This is especially relevant for you, Capricorn, because you tend to have a very clear internal picture of what success is supposed to look like. You know your goals, you know your timeline, you know, in your mind, roughly how your next chapter is supposed to unfold. And that clarity is usually one of your greatest strengths, but right now it might also be a limitation, because it could cause you to overlook something valuable simply because it doesn't fit neatly into the picture you already had. Try, if you can, to loosen your grip on exactly what the next opportunity is supposed to look like, not forever, just enough to notice what's actually in front of you, rather than only searching for what you expected to find. This unexpected opening, whatever form it eventually takes, is not a distraction from your long-term growth. It is connected to it, even if the connection isn't obvious yet. Trust that the process unfolding around you is not about instant gratification. It's about building something that lasts, even if it takes a slightly different shape than you originally planned. Love and relationships are part of the shift. This hidden shift isn't only about your career or your long-term direction. It's also touching your relationships, and I think it's important we talk about that honestly. You may be starting to see certain people with more clarity than before. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because the fog that once made certain dynamics feel confusing is beginning to lift. Where you used to second-guess your own feelings, you may now find yourself trusting your instincts more. Where you used to excuse inconsistency, you may now find yourself quietly unwilling to accept it any longer. This is a meaningful development, Capricorn, because emotional boundaries, real ones, not just words you say but actions you follow through on, tend to strengthen after periods of confusion. You've likely spent some time recently feeling unsure about where you stood with someone, or unsure about what you truly wanted versus what you were simply used to. That confusion is beginning to clear, and with clarity comes standards, higher ones that protect your peace rather than compromise it. I want you to start noticing which relationships bring you a sense of calm, stability, and ease, and which ones consistently leave you feeling anxious, uncertain, or like you're constantly working to interpret mixed signals. That contrast is important information. Relationships that constantly create uncertainty are not automatically meant to be fixed or fought for. Sometimes they're simply meant to be recognized for what they are, so you can make an informed choice about how much space you continue to give them. Some connections in your life may naturally deepen during this period, relationships where mutual respect, honesty, and consistency already exist. These bonds may feel more secure, more comfortable, more effortlessly aligned than they have in a while. At the same time, other connections may quietly begin to lose their grip on you, not necessarily through conflict or confrontation, but through a gradual natural loosening, a fading of intensity that once felt important but no longer holds the same weight. I want to be clear about something important here. This shift is not about chasing anyone. It's not about trying to win back attention, prove your worth, or convince someone to treat you differently. The goal, Capricorn, is not to chase a person. The goal is to become so aligned with healthier emotional standards that the relationships which don't meet them simply stop being able to hold your attention the way they once did. That is not coldness. That is growth. Career, money, and your next level. Let's shift now into the areas of career and finances, because your next chapter is likely to touch both. Capricorn, one of the clearest messages coming through for you right now is this. Your next level may require a new strategy, not simply more effort. You have already proven, many times over, that you know how to work hard. That has never been the question. The real question right now is whether the current approach you're using is actually the most effective path toward where you want to go, or whether it's simply the most familiar one. There is a difference between working hard and working smart, and right now, life may be nudging you toward reconsidering your approach rather than simply doubling down on the same methods. This could show up as a shift in how you think about work itself, a growing interest in more independence, more leadership, or more control over how your time and energy are used. It could show up as new priorities around financial security, saving or long-term stability rather than short-term gains. It could show up as a quiet re-evaluation of whether your current path is actually building the kind of future you want, or whether it's simply the path you've been on because it's familiar. I want to encourage you to stay open to opportunities that create sustainable progress, rather than opportunities that promise something fast but unstable. You are someone who is capable of building things that last. Real structures, real security, real long-term value. Don't let impatience push you towards something that looks exciting in the short term, but lacks the foundation to hold up over time. And if progress feels slow right now, I want you to remember something important. Slow progress can still be powerful progress. A foundation that is being built carefully, deliberately, and with real structure will almost always outlast something built quickly and carelessly. You are not behind. You are building correctly, even if the results aren't visible yet. The signs you are entering a new chapter. Let's bring some of this together now by looking at the specific signs that suggest you are entering a genuinely new chapter of your life, even if the external world hasn't caught up yet. Sign 1. You no longer feel connected to an old goal. Something you used to want intensely. A specific job, a specific relationship outcome, a specific version of success, no longer stirs the same emotion in you. That disconnection isn't apathy, it's evolution. You are simply becoming someone whose desires are shifting to match who you're growing into. Sign 2. Certain people or situations naturally begin falling away. Not through dramatic conflict necessarily, sometimes simply through distance, reduced contact, or a quiet fading of relevance. This is often a sign that your environment is recalibrating itself to match your new direction, even before you've consciously chosen that direction yourself. Sign 3. You feel drawn towards something new without fully understanding why. Maybe it's a subject, a place, an idea, a type of work, or even a feeling you're chasing that you can't quite name yet. Trust this pull, even if it doesn't come with a full explanation. Not everything needs to be logically justified before it's worth paying attention to. Sign 4. Your standards become stronger. In relationships, in work, in how you spend your time and energy. You may notice yourself becoming less tolerant of situations that once felt acceptable. This isn't you becoming difficult. This is you recognizing your own worth more clearly than before. Sign 5. You become less interested in proving yourself to others. Where you may have once sought validation, approval, or recognition, you may now find a quieter, steadier sense of confidence that doesn't require external permission. This is one of the clearest signs of internal evolution, when your sense of self stops depending on being witnessed by others. None of these signs require dramatic external proof. They can exist quietly, internally, well before the outside world reflects them back to you. If you're recognizing even 1 or 2 of these signs in your own life right now, take that seriously. It means the shift we've been discussing throughout this video isn't hypothetical, it's already happening. Your destiny is not being taken away. It is being redirected, Capricorn. We've arrived at the heart of everything this video has been building toward. If something in your life feels delayed right now, a goal, a relationship, an opportunity, a decision, I want you to consider a different way of understanding that delay. A delayed outcome does not necessarily mean a denied outcome. Timing and rejection are not the same thing, even though they can feel identical in moments of frustration or doubt. What if the hidden shift we've been exploring throughout this entire video isn't about removing your destination at all? What if it's simply about changing the route you take to get there? You may still arrive exactly where you were meant to arrive, just not by the exact path you originally imagined. And sometimes the detour ends up teaching you exactly what you needed to know before you were ready to hold what you were asking for. This is where I want to encourage you to trust 3 things: discernment, patience, and intentional action. Discernment, so you can recognize which opportunities genuinely align with who you're becoming, rather than who you used to be. Patience, so you don't force outcomes before they're ready to unfold naturally. And intentional action, so that even while you wait, you continue moving, deliberately, thoughtfully, rather than standing completely still. And here is the reminder I want you to carry with you long after this video ends. Your new chapter begins the moment you stop trying to recreate the old one. Not when circumstances change, not when someone else shifts their behavior, not when the timing finally feels perfect. It begins internally, the moment you release your grip on what used to be and open your hands to what's actually forming in front of you. That moment may be closer than you think. Capricorn, if this message found you at the right moment, take it as an invitation to pause and look at your life differently. Something may be changing quietly before it becomes obvious. You do not need to have every answer today. You only need to recognize what no longer belongs in your future. If you felt something shift while listening to this message, comment "I am ready" below. And if you want more Capricorn astrology, new moon energy, spiritual guidance, and destiny-focused readings, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share this video with another Capricorn who may be standing at the edge of a new chapter. Your next chapter may already be beginning, you just haven't seen the full picture yet.